does everyone have access to the agenda and notes document? Do I need to paste a link in anywhere for anyone?
I don't think that much different.
It was in the invite, so I'm assuming most people have it. Okay, cool. Can we get somebody to volunteer to take notes for the meeting?
Anyone volunteering?
I can take notes.
Right.
Awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, I did it last time. Sorry, yesterday.
Yeah, if you want to take the notes just directly in that policy meeting notes document. Cool. So two bits on the agenda today. First, we want to talk about Istio 0.3. The focus document is out. I want to kind of spin through that, especially the P0s, if there's time, the P1s as well, and kind of just make sure that we all agree, that the priorities are right, and for the P0s that we actually have people working on them. And then I'd like to talk about how we're going to track those going forward. There was some, I guess some of the teams are using ZenHub. I didn't see any of the 0.3 items from security showing up in ZenHub, so we can talk about that as well. But yeah, if you want to pull up the 0.3 focus document, I can share that.
Anyone presenting?
I will, just a moment.
Okay.
There we go. Is that large enough? Can people see this?
Yes. Good.
All right. Cool. So here's the current list for the security section. So the first P0 incremental MTLS adoption is basically, both incremental in the sense of moving services kind of one by one into TLS, but also I think incremental in being able to do this without causing any traffic to be dropped. So when you want to enable mutual TLS on a service, be able to do it in a way that is incremental and doesn't cause things to break. Anybody have questions or comments about that one?
Are you asking for us to clarify who is working on this item?
No, just do people understand what it is? Do people think that it's not really a P0? Like, I kind of want to just spin through the list and make sure that everybody knows what they are, and that we sort of, as a group, a working group, kind of agree that these really are the priority items for 0.3.
Sounds good.
Okay, so next one is enabling auth while still allowing health checks. There's this issue with Kubernetes, especially where the kubelet is responsible for hitting an endpoint on a service and checking whether it is healthy. And when we turn on TLS, that breaks. So we need to find a solution that doesn't break this. And the last P1 is Istio components using secure connections. This one is going to be, it's like listed under security, but it's going to be, I think, a joint effort with other working groups for the individual components. So like Envoy to Mixer will be, I think, with, is there a working group that specifically works on Mixer?
Yeah, there's a working group, but I don't think that work group has opened to community yet. Probably in the next couple of weeks, they will open this group to the community.
Okay. And then I know that the network working group, or the networking working group, is tracking the fact that we want to have secure communication between Envoy and Pilot. They had that on their roadmap when we had our meeting with them last week. So any questions or comments on the P0s?
Can I ask for the clarifications for the first P0? Incremental means traffic shifting as well, right? Or is separate?
Yeah, no, I think it does mean traffic shifting. So,
Okay.
well, at least the high level goal I don't think is necessarily traffic shifting, but it is that you can turn this on and verify that it's working in a way that's not going to like bring your cluster to a halt or cause your service to start failing. So traffic shifting is the sort of is the design I think that we have for allowing that to happen. But the use case, if you like, is okay. I've got Istio running in my cluster. Now I want to turn on MTLS, but I want to do it, on a live production cluster with services actually being run and not have people start getting drop connections and the services failing to work.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. So do you think
Even that is still requires some sort of traffic shifting to support it, right? Because basically you have to set up two services in parallel and move traffic from one to the other.
So as we discussed, we might divide that to two different phases. The first one, we might have a little bit of downtime, but we could get that quickly. But ideal solution would without downtime at all. Yes. That will require traffic shifting. Yes. I just want to make sure we could get to that state by.
So the first one, with downtime, we can support, but is that acceptable for this?
I think this is up for us to define. And I mean, ideally, I agree with Spike that would be our eventual goal. But I want to double check. Can we make this goal in time?
Yeah, without downtime, that's.
I mean, without downtime, just the traffic shifting.
Without downtime, right. There's some kind of designing question we have to go through, but
do we have enough?
I have a kind of hacky solution, but pilot and network team may not like it, so we have to discuss this some further and depend on what they want us to implement. It could be longer or shorter. I don't know.
So just to be clear to everyone, P0 means that it is a feature that we would consider blocking the release for. So that's the kind of question that we should be asking if whether this is a P0 or P1 is like, would we block the release if that feature wasn't working?
Right. I mean, I'm also trying to clarify because incremental, this one can be interpreted a different way. You didn't say like SLA for the downtime. Even if we do the phase 0, that downtime is 1 minute, that's probably good enough or not, I don't know. So that perhaps something we should clarify and also make sure we are able to deliver it, since if we call that P0.
Yeah. So I mean, what do people think? Is doing this with 0? So I think that everyone agrees that doing this service by service is a P0, but with no downtime. Is that also a P0?
Yeah, that's a good question.
I saw there are two P1 items, inbound TLS in mesh and outbound TLS. Are these related?
No, that's not related. Let's get, so to me, if we can deliver that without downtime, that would be awesome. But if it turns out we could not deliver it in time, I can accept with like short window of downtime.
When is release?
That's a good question. Does anyone know?
The goal for the release is basically in time for KubeCon, as far as I understand.
KubeCon is going to be.
That's December. The first week of December.
Early December.
That's going to be really tough.
Yeah.
So let's clarify the goal. So the 0 downtime is going to be stretch goal. That's my take.
Okay. I mean, do people disagree with that? Should we write that down as P1 with 0 downtime?
Okay, I get it. Like,
yeah.
Then let's do
All
that,
right.
Unless we have objection.
All right. Okay.
Thanks.
Cool. Any other clarifications or comments about the other P0s that are up there, or this one?
And I probably not comments to any of the items. I just want to make sure we have the right audience because like the last item is working by engineer who is not in this meeting.
Okay.
So I just wonder if we should do you guys think there's a need to have a like monthly meeting that we have all security related working group to attend and make sure we have the right audience because
Yeah, I
this
mean,
meeting is only for security policy, right?
yes. So I would be in favor of us having the entire security SIG meeting on a regular basis, in addition to the working groups that have their focus topics, because like some of these things don't fit, like you say, they don't really fit into either the policy working group or the identity working group, like this thing about secure connections. So I think that we do want to have security SIG having some meetings in addition to the individual focus groups having their meetings.
Okay.
That's my opinion anyway.
Any other opinions?
I agree with Spike. That sounds reasonable.
All right. I will work with our organizer and try to set up one.
Yeah, I mentioned that the touch points where everybody cares are very few compared to the things that the individual work groups can address themselves.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Okay. Cool. So let's talk about the P1s. So SNI is the service name indication or server name indication. So this is primarily about properly supporting ingress of secure connections. When a client wants to make a TLS connection or the client is outside the mesh and wants to make a TLS connection in the mesh, then we need to be able to support this TLS feature in order to provide a certificate that the client will accept as valid. Any questions or comments about that? So inbound TLS in mesh. So this is where Envoy is on the server but not on the client, but I guess bypassing ingress. Do you know what this is, Wencheng?
Envoy on server. I think that means the client side doesn't have Envoy. That means talk to a server that has Envoy enabled. So that's probably for the migration path.
Yes,
I feel this is part of the incremental.
Yes, this is an
It's
incremental adoption
enabled.
that allow you to have Envoy on the server side and the client side.
It's part of the for service enablement can solve this problem.
Okay, maybe we can remove this one if this is duplicate to the first one.
Wow.
What is the problem
is
that it's solving?
To solving the problem by solving the first problem, we're solving this B1. So
that
that
may be true, but we shouldn't start removing them from the list just because we believe that the solution to one is also the solution to the other. Like these are about things that we have to solve.
Yes.
Okay.
But I'm still not clear on what this is. Like this is where you've got a service and it's already using TLS, and then you want to put Istio in and have the TLS terminated at the Envoy. Is that what this is, or is this something else?
Let me take a look. That's true traffic.
I think we want to forward, right? No.
Let us treat traffic at L7. That's confusing. I don't know who put this one here.
Okay. Well, I will have an action item to
Yeah, I don't know what's the goal. Is this goal is to is for incremental adoption of TLS, or the goal is to allow just one direction in TLS?
That's not mutual.
Yeah, one direction TLS.
I think the goal is for incremental adoption.
If the goal is for
Then
incremental adoption,
is the P0 item, right? One
Yeah.
is another item.
All right. I'll figure out who wrote this and try and chase down a better explanation of what this is. I think it probably is related to this next one where we're talking about outbound TLS.
I think probably Sven wrote it. So
If I understand correctly, that one may be set up the TLS for the service so that it can, not the MTLS, just a normal TLS, so that clients can talk to it.
yeah, outbound TLS makes sense in that.
what about inbound?
So this is outbound of the mesh.
Right.
Okay. So TLS on egress.
Well, it
All right,
doesn't have
that makes
to
sense.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be egress, right?
Outbound TLS.
You already
Well-
have a TLS service and you let that join the mesh, but you don't change the TLS.
But I mean, in what sense is the server, if the server doesn't have Envoy, then how is it in the mesh? Like this parenthesis, Envoy on client, not on server. That means to me, mesh to non-mesh.
Also, the last part is interesting. So it keep mentioning L7 instead of L4. So I think that means.
Well, I think that what they mean by that is that we can actually see the traffic.
Right, exactly.
And,
So
and log it and do authorization and all of those things.
so the
But that means
TLS
that we're initiating.
exactly.
TLS.
I think that probably apply to both of them. So I think my understanding for the first one is that we should install keysert at Envoy level to terminate incoming traffic instead of letting application terminating the incoming traffic. Same thing for the outbound. The traffic from application to Envoy will be non-encrypted, and Envoy will upgrade the traffic to encrypted traffic.
Okay. So do people agree that these are P1 issues for us to get in?
Seems fine to me.
Okay. The next one is interoperability with TLS, MTLS, and non-TLS services in the mesh. I'm not exactly sure what we're trying to say here.
I feel like there is a lot of overlapping. Like this one seems to overlap with the previous two.
Yeah.
So, Spike, how about we work offline with Sven? Let's clarify these three and make sure we all agree.
Yep.
With these items. Thanks.
Okay. Cool. So the next one is control over policy definition, including hierarchies and access controls. So I think what this is talking about is if we're defining security policy, we also have to think about access control to that policy itself.
Yes.
So we discussed this topic in the previous meeting, right?
Yep. So
and, what's the conclusion?
I mean, I think that where we got to in the previous meeting was that we didn't think that Istio RBAC with Kubernetes RBAC over those objects alone would meet all of the use cases.
Mm-hmm.
But like especially policy hierarchy, I don't think is met by those, but just access controls would be.
And also access control is based on namespace, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If we use Kubernetes object.
But as we think that should address majority use cases,
But
and there might be still some cases we could not
like
address.
service level access. Yeah. If the policy is defined on the service level, we are not able to
Right.
address it.
Right.
Yeah, and also the policy hierarchy.
So I think that,
what kind of hierarchy do we plan to support? Like arbitrary hierarchy customer can define, or it's just the same as Kubernetes, follow the namespace, cluster namespace, and service hierarchy.
yeah, I don't know for sure. I mean, I think that Itai is the one that suggested this as an Istio 0.3 focus, and so he wrote that document, kind of explaining the use cases there. So I think that he's interested in something that's more sophisticated than just Kubernetes namespaces as the hierarchy.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel the policy hierarchy does not only apply to security, but also other policies as well.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I guess maybe we should clarify to what extent is this like
Right.
all policy or security policy?
Right. Yeah.
Like, do we need to cover routing rules? Do we need to cover destination policy?
Yeah.
That's a good point. Otherwise, this is creating some discrepancy. I guess we don't want this to happen.
Yes.
Okay. So then we have P1, enabling auth doesn't break health check. I think this is
Isn't that a
Right,
B0?
This is P0.
yeah.
Let's remove it.
Yeah. Let's just drop that one entirely. And then we have Istio native RBAC, which I believe, have discussed in this working group as well, right? And Istio authorization with Open Policy Agent. There are design docs for both of those out now if people are wondering in the next level of detail of what that actually involves. And then I don't think it's necessarily worth us getting into the P2s and P3s for this meeting, other than to just ask, is there stuff missing that people think should be P0 or P1? Are some of the things that are listed P2s or P3s miscategorized in people's opinion?
I think workload facing API should be P1, and like Peter has already actively working on that. That's probably part of the MOI SDS API work.
Okay. And we think that has a reasonable chance of landing in 0.3?
Yes. Yes.
All right. So if that one's being promoted, we should probably talk in the next level of detail about what that actually means. So today in Kubernetes, when the services come up and the envoys want to do MTLS, they get their key and certificate via Kubernetes secrets. So Istio auth creates the secrets and puts them into Kubernetes, and then those are mounted by Kubernetes into the workloads. So in non-Kubernetes, the idea is that we'll have a node agent that will be running on the node that hosts the workload. And the idea here is to stop using Kubernetes secrets even for Kubernetes as well, and sort of switch to this node agent style architecture. So the workload will come up, it'll talk over a known API to the node agent in order to get its key material and certificate so that it can identify itself to other entities in the mesh.
Right, and I can add to that like two more benefits of doing it. First of all, the kind of way of loading certificate doesn't really support key rotation. Every time we need to rotate the key, we have to kill Envoy and restart it. This is, not ideal, and this API will solve that. And another benefit is node agent-based key sort of provisioning will provide a stronger security as compared to Kubernetes secrets. Kubernetes secrets is not designed for key cert.
All right. Any other questions or comments about these? Do people, agree that this is a good list? Okay, so I'm interested in kind of figuring out who's actually working on these things. So some of them are going to be in this working group, and some of them are going to be either in the larger security SIG or the other security working group, which is on identity. So it might be worth us just kind of going through and kind of deciding as a working group which of these we think are in our wheelhouse as a working group.
Actually, one comment before we go into this. There was a group of items on the P1s that seemed like they required more definition before we could commit to figuring out what it was, what it's there for.
Yeah.
Do we want to move those out into some other block before we discuss, who might work on these things?
That's probably a good idea. We'll kind of just skip over those for now in terms of
like they're important to somebody, but I don't.
Yeah, exactly.
Really know what they are. It's hard to know.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Okay, so kind of taking it from the top, incremental MTLS adoption. I think that this probably does belong in our working group.
Yes. And the DM is working on that. Probably
first one.
So solution for enabling authentication with health checks. Where do we think that belongs?
This is also, I think this is also the security policy.
Yeah, with a closer look into that. It belongs to security, but what I mean is not exactly the same solution we provide for the first item.
Does it belong to this policy group or?
It doesn't sound like it belongs to identity.
I have a suggestion from like actually the other P1 actually explained it right. We delegate the health check into Envoy. So I don't know if that's really security or could be some one in proxy.
Okay, let's keep this out.
Kind of, yeah.
Security in general, then. That doesn't belong to identity, then, or it doesn't be either end user. I think probably general.
Who would normally be?
So that's we think it's in the.
Sorry, Tristan, what did you say?
Who would normally be implementing the health checks?
Who will be on this one?
Is it this group or is it another group?
The entire group. So basically, DM is working on that.
Okay.
But we just don't think that fit into policy.
Yeah, this seems more like a feature enablement issue, and it happens to be breaking health checks. So
right.
Yeah, like something that our group is responsible for, which is sort of Istio auth in general, is breaking a different feature. So I think it probably is security SIG's kind of nominal responsibility to fix that.
Sounds good.
All right. And Istio components using secure connections. I think that's probably also the security SIG.
Yeah.
Not this specific working group. Cool. Service name indication.
I think also SIG.
I'm hesitating here because I'm wondering like how users are going to specify like which TLS cert is going to be used. Maybe that's more config than policy.
Is there any configuration to support SNI? I thought this automatically selected based on the client. The client will indicate which service name to use, and the the SNI implementation, just pick one.
Yeah, but those certs need to be distributed to
You
the.
need to distribute the cert based on the service name. And I think I'm not sure if the SNI is ready in the Envoy side. Last time I
Piotr is
don't know.
working on it.
Yeah, Piotr is
Please be zero.
working on it. Yeah,
There's no
not
configuration.
ready yet, and we need to properly configure it. Since previously it's just one key and cert, whatever connection comes in, you just present that cert. But with SNI, you need to configure it properly.
All right, that
Like
makes
a
sense.
backing from the service name you get and the key cert you present.
I think I'm now remembering that this is actually on the networking team's roadmap as well.
Right.
And I think that they said that it was going to be joint networking security.
Okay.
So we're going to skip those three because we're not super clear what they are. Policy definition, control over those. I think that probably does belong to this working group.
Yes.
Yeah.
Native RBAC also,
This one as well.
and the open policy agent. And this workload facing API for identity and secrets. Do you think that belongs to the identity working group?
Yes, workload identity.
Okay. All right. Cool. So for the ones that are or that we think are in this group's wheelhouse, I know that DM and Sarab and I are working on incremental MTLS. Do we know who, if anyone, is working on control over policy definition?
We had some discussion and design before, but I don't think this is settled.
So do we have anyone working on it? And who should be on? Are you working on it or?
Yeah, I can take on this.
Yeah, Li-Ming will be working on that.
Okay.
Just sitting on the owner.
Okay.
And the Istio native RBAC.
I can open.
Okay, Li-Ming's also working on that one. Open policy agent.
Actually, yeah. Jay is already has a change list out.
Oh, okay, awesome.
So for the native RBAC, Spike, do you also have a cycle to like work with us?
Yeah, I can help out there.
Because we have like larger challenge, as I mentioned in the last meeting. Ideally, would like to converge Istio RBAC with Kubernetes RBAC.
Right.
And there will be a lot of discussion going on with Kubernetes group.
Yeah. I can definitely help you help out with those discussions.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, we can work together.
Yep. Cool. So that sort of brings me into the next thing that I wanted to talk about, which was like, how are we planning on tracking this stuff? In terms of like who's working on them and what's the status of it and things like that. So like one of my goals in this cycle is to increase community involvement, and I think that like having some visibility into kind of where things are and where people can help out is a good way to do that. So what I would like is for us to have a way that we're actually tracking all of these items, having at least one person who's the kind of point of contact for them. So if people in the community want to get involved, they know who to talk to, and that we kind of are regularly kind of meeting and getting status updates and asking the question of like, where do we need help on these items?
Yes, I like that. And I think you mentioned something like ZenHub?
Yeah.
Is
So
this how other Istio teams tracking their progress?
I think they are. So let me pull.
Yeah, as long as we are consistent, I think I'm okay.
So have you guys all seen this ZenHub?
I saw that.
Yeah, so I know that the network team is using it, and I actually just jumped on today. So as you can see, like this is it's read only from me, and I'm wondering whether that is going to be a limiting factor in how useful this is going to be for everyone, because it looks like you actually need to write permissions on the repo in order to use ZenHub, and so I don't believe that most of the people that are in this room have write permissions on the Istio repos that are relevant. Like for example, who here has write permissions on Mixer, which is where we'd be doing our work on RBAC.
Right, that's a very, very good question. I think Sven and Luis and are working on some governance model, and I'm not sure if they publish anything yet. I will talk to them and bring this up, and I will get back to you. And I definitely agree that I think if we are talking about the community involvement, we definitely would like you guys have like some access to do that, to do the actual work.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So it'd be nice to be able to like create issues on the ZenHub board, even if I don't have the permission to merge to the repos.
Right.
So like I mean I sort of am not. I've only just started using ZenHub, so I'm not necessarily wed to that as like the thing that we should be using to track this. But if we kind of as Istio in general have decided that that's the way that we want to track this stuff, then we need to get these security priorities into ZenHub and tracking them. So like none of the P0s from security currently are in ZenHub, at least that I could find. So if we're going to use ZenHub, then we actually need to take that action and put the stuff into ZenHub and get owners assigned to them and things like that. And if we're going to use a different solution, then we have to identify what that solution is.
I agree. I'll get that back to you ASAP.
Okay, so Wencheng, you're going to follow up on tracking.
Yes.
All right, awesome. Cool. And any other like kind of comments and concerns from people about tracking that you want Wencheng to mention when he's following up here?
Mostly just how it relates to the GitHub issues list and whether it's similar, the same. How do you get clarity between, like, that would be where I would expect most community members would probably start posting things.
I assume ZenHub will link to GitHub issues. Isn't that so?
So each of these items on the board are backed by GitHub issues, but I don't think it's the converse is true. Like if I open an issue, I don't think it necessarily like shows up in ZenHub as like a P0. So we just need to kind of figure out how that's going to work.
Yeah.
Okay.
That'd be my only comment, is like figuring out how when the community says something's really important, that it surfaces here.
All right, cool. So that's all I had for that item.
Sorry, I just want to bring up one more item, issues in terms of 0.3 focus. So Lizan started a new work group focused on end-user authentication, and we see they're demanding, requirement from our customers. They want to see us make some progress to support end-user authentication, and probably, after we have the first work group on end-user authentication, we'll see if we should add anything to the 0.3 focus as P1 or P2, just to make sure we have a complete picture.
So do you need anything from us at this point, or is it just kind of like come to this first meeting and we'll talk about it?
Yeah. Just for your information, the first meeting will be held on Monday at 1 p.m. So feel free to join. You're very welcome to the working group.
All right, awesome.
Wencheng, is this in part related to identity proposals for supporting things like SAML and OpenID providers in general.
Yeah, that will
Yeah,
include that.
that will be one of the topics in the end user authentication group.
Yeah, the only thing I could think of that will materially affect policy beyond that is sort of how the authentication is represented within Istio attributes, like the Istio attribute vocabulary.
Yeah, I think China, we already have like a draft document about the authentication attributes in the Istio way. So we will discuss that too.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind, if we haven't already sent it to this group, sending it along to this group.
Yeah. Sure.
That actually is a good thing that I wanted to discuss as well. Do you guys want to keep using the Istio-security Google group as the way that we're communicating over email, or do we want to create a separate list that's just for this working group? Like I don't necessarily want to like kind of fragment the discussion too much. The security list doesn't get that much traffic today, so maybe we just continue using it, but kind of flag the messages as the policy working group. Does that work for people? What do people think?
Yeah, I think that sounds good to me.
Yeah, I like.
Yeah, I feel current we have all security related in one mail group. Makes some sense until we got too many traffic there.
Okay.
Right, and I think many of the topic will be cross working group.
Right.
Like when we're talking about identity, the identity, how to use identity is going to be policy driven. Same thing for end user authentication.
So I think it gets give us better visibility to other working groups, and it's not flooded yet. So
okay.
Cool. So Wenqing, do you want to talk about Istio and Kubernetes RBAC convergence?
Yeah, I just want to give some follow up. I think there's an action item for me to set up some meetings so we can talk to Kubernetes security folks in terms of design and plan how we can converge these two RBACs. I did talk to Google internal Kubernetes security team. I think they are definitely supporting this direction. So, and let me know it's back. I probably have them set up some meetings, and I also invite like Spike or any of you who is interested. We can contribute ideas to make this happen. And again, just to highlight the reason we think this is the right direction, because based on current design, they are very similar, and that there definitely is some discrepancy, but discrepancy doesn't seem to big enough justify we go separate way, and that might cause confusion to our customers. And we do not want to educate customer yet another system. Another thing I want to bring up is I think probably that was discussed in one of the RBAC design is internally we call it a condition. So basically we can introduce cell expression into RBAC to give it more power and flexibility in terms of access control.
Is that centered on Kubernetes?
Yes, we'd like to introduce cell to Kubernetes condition. Kubernetes RBAC. Do you have any concern?
Only that you have, the RBAC is effectively a set of, it's a configuration that has a set of implicit operators. And when you introduce ABAC-like conditions and intertwined with sort of this config-driven policy that has implicit operators, and then you have something with very explicit operators, it's really easy to collide or have a collision between the very explicit statement and the implicit logic without it being super obvious to the user.
I buy your point, and I think that probably is something we can bring up when we discuss with Kubernetes folks, because they also have this desire to add that support. But to me, I think the priority number one is just basic RBAC. And condition to me is like stretch goal.
Yeah, I think making sure the RBAC models line up is probably the most important thing, and then beyond that, anything else is gravy. You can make the RBAC plus ABAC work, but the ABAC conditions have to basically not apply at all to anything that may appear in the RBAC side.
Right. And also that reminds me one more thing to talk about. I think currently we are only focusing on master level access control. We internally call it coarse grain. We are not really talking about resource level access control for Istio. We like to default that to yet another authorization system like OPA. But actually, Kubernetes RBAC, they do support resource level access control for Kubernetes resource. So I think that topic will also come up. If we are talking about alignment, should Istio RBAC also support resource level access control?
Well, the
beyond
Istio
Kubernetes
RBAC
resource?
proposal that we have does support it, at least in a limited fashion, where you can specify what HTTP paths are allowed in the RBAC.
Instance?
No, not instance. So when we so for Istio RBAC, when we use the path, we identify a method basically. Path plus the verb identify method. And
Yeah.
Vincent is talking about the custom resource. It's like using bookstore example. It's like the third book or a shelf or something. This is considered a custom resource. I think
Right, and so to the extent that the location of those resources are kind of directly encoded in the URLs,
right?
Yes.
Then you can authorize people access to specific ones. But if they're not encoded directly in the URL or use some other kind of scheme, it gets quite difficult. So that's what I mean by saying there's limited support for doing that now.
Right. I just bring up this might be topics we will need to discuss with Kubernetes folks.
Yeah, I think Kubernetes RBAC supports resource, but that's a predefined resource.
Right.
It's like a Kubernetes resource.
They are considering.
Yeah, it's not custom resource.
They're considering expanding this to support custom resource.
You can support custom resources, like if by custom resources we mean CRDs, like that is supported in Kubernetes RBAC today.
Okay. Sounds good.
Oh, okay.
That's pretty much what I want to cover.
All right. So there's one more item, which is auth enablement. I don't know if you want to kind of talk for 5 minutes about this, or whether we need to punt to next meeting.
Yeah, it's just a quick update, I guess.
Okay.
So this is for the actually this is a solution for the P0,
Incremental MTLS.
Yes. So the first solution we have is using the annotation to opt-in, opt-out for MTLS. And that will allow people to switch to that with some downtime. And I think that look good so far. I have a PR.
What is the scope of the annotation? Is it on the service?
Per service, yeah.
Okay. So that would require downtime.
Yes.
Because you have to move the entire service over.
Exactly. So the code is in progress on Kubernetes. I need some work on the other, like Console and Eureka, but I think there's no roadblock on that side. For traffic, for the thing with traffic shifting, we still need to work further with our design, like to find some better integration with Pilot, I think.
Should we do a design review for both proposal, not just the security, but the entire Istio? Because that we also need input from other work groups, I guess.
Yeah, I think for the post service we can do it, but it's very small. It's I don't know.
I mean, for both of them.
For the other one, is still in flux. I'm not sure that.
Yeah, I mean,
I think we should do a design review because I was expecting you to say it'd be a setting on a per service version, and I can't immediately picture if we make it a setting per service, how we'll extend that to do. Without any downtime for the service. It may be possible, but that's why I'm suggesting, design review to discuss that.
Yes. Okay, I will set up some meeting next week because like the thing is moved back and forth for the per service version or per deployment in our end, and there's some objection from pilot, and so we want to kind of smooth it out first.
Yeah, I would also suggest like you work with Spike and Sorum.
Yeah, Sorum
to
is
get internal agreement. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, we have a meeting this afternoon after this, I think 4 o'clock with pilot and see
Okay.
what we can do.
All right.
Yep. Sounds good. All right. Any parting thoughts or wisdom? All right. Great. Thanks for coming, everyone. We'll talk to you again in 2 weeks, if not sooner.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.
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 Right.
Ja, das ist für uns. Okay.